In my first video covering the theme of love in Twelfth Night, I looked at how it drives the main plot, with Shakespeare's creation of a love triangle between Orsino, who loves Olivia, who loves Cesario/Viola, who loves Orsino. We also saw how Orsino's language of love is underpinned by the courtly love tradition, as he positions himself as the pining lover who characterises the object of his desire as a goddess, content to mope as he tries to woo Olivia by proxy and to suffer the pangs of unrequited or unreturned love as she repeatedly rejects him from afar. We discover, however, that he is of a capricious nature, in that he is able to switch his affections from Olivia to Viola in the blink of an eye, as soon as Olivia decisively rejects him face to face. We also saw that Olivia is no less fickle, in that she not only abandons her vow to remain shut away from the company of men for 7 years, in order to honour her deceased brother as soon as she sees and falls in love with Cesario, but also accepts without question the fact that she has mistakenly married Sebastian rather than Cesario, to whom she immediately switches her affections. Viola, in contrast to Orsino and Olivia, remains constant in her own love for Orsino, which she must suffer without being able to explicitly tell anyone of it, although she does manage, in moments that are heavy with dramatic irony and pathos, to indirectly profess her feelings to Orsino by pretending that she is speaking of another woman. In this video, I'm going to concentrate on the way the theme of love is addressed in one of the comedic subplots, featuring Olivia's servants, Maria and Fabian, and Olivia's house guests, the party animals Sir Toby Belch and Sir Andrew Aguecheek, which culminates in a fake love triangle and duel between Sir Andrew and Viola. I'm then going to look at the very real love match between Sir Toby and Maria, which blossoms as they plot Malvolio's downfall, with its foundations in an appreciation of a quick wit and a bawdy sense of humour, as well as in a shared love of a good practical joke. I'll finish by discussing the very intense friendship between Antonio and Sebastian, which, at times, seems just as deep and passionate as romantic love. In a future video, I'll talk about the practical joke that Maria dreams up to play on Malvolio, which will exploit his self-love and delusional ambition to rise far beyond his social position. The switching back and forth between the noble upstairs characters and the baser downstairs characters not only provides a change of pace and tone, but also highlights the differences in language that can be used to talk about love. Sir Andrew's first appearance in Act 1, Scene 3 gives Shakespeare the opportunity to characterise him as a gullible but ultimately harmless idiot, who has been encouraged to harbour the vain hope that Olivia will fall in love with and marry him. He is easily fooled by the quick-witted Sir Toby, Maria and Feste, who will go on to make him the unwitting butt of their jokes, with much of the verbal humour relying on double entendres. For them, it is not the ideals of the courtly love tradition that underpin their interactions, but instead plain old sex. Take, for example, this early exchange between Sir Toby, Sir Andrew and Maria in Act 1, Scene 3, lines 51 to 73, in which Sir Toby and Maria play with language and exploit double meanings to imply not only that Sir Andrew is a fool, but also that he is sexually impotent. Shakespeare's wordplay can often be obscure to the modern ear, so I'll translate this bit line by line. Sir Toby has just introduced Sir Andrew to Maria and has already started to make sexual innuendos, as he uses nautical and warlike metaphors to suggest that Sir Andrew should accost her or make a pass at her. You mistake, knight. Accost is front her, board her, woo her, assail her. In other words, he should approach her, climb aboard her like one would a ship, and attack her as one would in a naval battle. Sir Andrew responds that he would never dream of doing such a thing with everyone looking. As Maria tries to leave, Sir Toby reprimands him and says that if he allows her to leave in this fashion, would thou mightst never draw sword again, i.e., he doesn't deserve to use his sword ever again. Note how Sir Toby continues to use language that suggests the sexual act is one of violence by a male towards a female. Sir Andrew tries to coax Maria to stay by saying that if she leaves like this, I might never draw sword again, and asks the rhetorical question, "Fair lady, do you think you have fools in hand? Or do you think you're dealing with a fool here?" Clearly she does, but she deliberately chooses to understand Sir Andrew's rhetorical question literally, answering him, "Sir, I have not you by the hand," i.e., but I'm not holding you by the hand. The subtext is, of course, that were she to be, she would indeed have a fool in the hand. Her impertinence goes over his head, however, as he merely responds, "Marry, or by the Virgin Mary, you shall have, and here's my hand." Taking hold of his proffered hand, Maria makes the comment, "Now, sir, thought is free. I pray you bring your hand to the buttery bar and let it drink." The first part here, thought is free, is the customary retort that is made when someone asks the rhetorical question, "Do you take me for a fool?" In other words, she's saying, "Yes, actually I do, and I'm entitled to my own opinion." The second part of what she says confuses him. Why on earth is she asking him to take his hand to the buttery bar, a place where alcohol was served, and give it a drink? He asks her what hidden meaning she is getting at. Wherefore or why, sweetheart? What's your metaphor? Now we're going to get some verbal gymnastics in which no fewer than 4 separate meanings of the adjective dry, i.e. thirsty, sexually impotent, not wet, and a sense of humour where funny things are said with a straight face, are going to be exploited by Shakespeare for laughs. So try and keep up. Maria merely responds to Sir Andrew's question asking her why he should take his hand to get a drink with, "It's dry, sir." On the surface, she seems to be referring to the fact that his hand is thirsty and is therefore in need of a drink. But really she is saying that the palm of his hand is the very opposite of moist, which was said to be an indication of sexual arousal, and she is therefore implying that he is sexually impotent. The joke totally goes over Sir Andrew's head, however, as referring to the proverb, "Fools have wit," or intelligence enough to keep themselves out of the rain, he says, "Of course it is," referring to the literal meaning of the word dry. "I am not such an ass, but I can keep my hand dry. But what's your jest? Or what joke are you making here?" Maria responds that her joke, or her humour, is dry, referring to yet another meaning of the word, which is where funny things are said with a straight face, as though they are meant seriously, prompting Sir Andrew to ask her if she is full of these such jokes. "Yes," she says, "I have them at my fingers' ends." In other words, she has a ready supply of them. What she also means, however, is that she's literally holding the jokes in the form of Sir Andrew at her fingers' ends in her hand, and that when she lets go of his hand, she is barren or has lost them all. This little exchange has a number of dramatic functions. It demonstrates Sir Andrew's idiocy, which will later allow Sir Toby to set him up for the comedy of the duel with Cesario. It also shows us another facet to love. While the love of the nobles is talked about and communicated using elevated and eloquent language exclusively focusing on emotions and idealised beauty, these characters keep it real by focusing on what actually underpins love, sex and sexual attraction, and as we have observed, often using violent imagery to do so. That's not to say, however, that it isn't there, bubbling under the surface, amongst the nobles. Why else would Olivia immediately ditch her vow to shun the company of men at the sight of Cesario? How now? Even so quickly may one catch the plague? I feel this youth's perfections with an invisible and subtle stealth to creep in at mine eyes. And Orsino feel a strange and inexplicable attraction to Cesario's feminine attributes too. Diana's lip is not more smooth than Rubius. Thy small pipe is as the maiden's organ, shrill and sound, and all is semblative a woman's part. Finally, it also gives Shakespeare the opportunity to show off his own skills at wordplay, to give the audience a bawdy intermission, which they would have thoroughly enjoyed, before returning to the romance and pathos of the main plot, the Orsino, Olivia, Viola love triangle. As we can see then, Sir Andrew is suitably gullible to believe in the existence of a love triangle dreamed up by Fabian between himself, Olivia and Cesario. Sir Andrew has just about reached the end of his tether and is threatening to leave. The last straw for him is when he sees Olivia together with Cesario. "Marry, I saw your niece do more favours to the Count's serving man than ever she bestowed upon me. I saw it in the orchard." Fabian's quick thinking turns this around to argue that Olivia is just doing this to make him jealous. "She did show favour to the youth in your sight only to exasperate you, to awaken your dormouse valour, to put fire in your heart and brimstone in your liver." He chides him for not having seized the opportunity to go over and humiliate Cesario and render him speechless with some brilliantly funny jokes made up on the spot, as Olivia was expecting him to do. He has missed his chance, and Olivia now has a really low opinion of him. The only way Fabian can see for Sir Andrew to win her heart is either through valour or policy, i.e. through bravery or plotting. "It must be valour," announces Sir Andrew, because he hates plotting. "In that case," says Sir Toby, "the only way to get her attention is to make a grand gesture. Challenge me, the Count's youth, to fight with him. Hurt him in 11 places. My niece shall take note of it. And assure thyself there is no love broker in the world can prevail in man's commendation with women than report of valour." In other words, if Sir Andrew challenges Cesario to a duel and badly hurts him, Olivia will sit up and take notice, as after all, there is no matchmaker in the world who can get you a woman faster than a report of a courageous act on her behalf. Note how this is a caricature not only of the grand gestures demanded by the courtly love tradition, but also a reflection of those that Viola claimed would get Olivia's attention in Act 1, Scene 5. And so, just as easily as that, Sir Andrew is persuaded to go off and write a letter challenging the unwitting Viola to a duel. Of course, because this is a comedy and not a tragedy, there is no way that this duel can take place. Rather than deliver the letter, which when it is written is something and nothing, Sir Toby acts as go-between, building up such a picture of the one to the other that the two duellists are plain terrified of one another. The farce is only brought to a halt when Antonio, mistaking Viola for Sebastian, tries to step in and ends up getting himself arrested. And I'll discuss this in more detail later, when we look at the platonic love between Antonio and Sebastian. The creation of this fictional love triangle serves a number of dramatic functions. Not only does it provide moments of comic relief, in that it culminates in a farcical duel in which neither Sir Andrew nor Cesario/Viola wishes to participate, but it also reflects the serious love triangle between the nobles of the main plot, although that is no less ridiculous if we really think about it. It also provides the opportunity for Antonio to mistake Cesario for Sebastian, and so to set up the denouement, where Cesario is finally unmasked as Viola. While all of these shenanigans are going on, we see the very low-key development of the romantic relationship between Sir Toby and Maria. At the beginning, they are very much at odds with one another, as Maria makes her disapproval of Sir Toby's carousing and his choice of companion, in the person of Sir Andrew Aguecheek, well known. "That quaffing and drinking will undo you. I heard my lady talk of it yesterday, and of a foolish knight that you brought in one night here to be her wooer." But while she is content to chastise him for his rowdy behaviour, she takes exception to Malvolio throwing his weight around and blaming her for allowing it to happen in the first place. "Mistress Mary, if you prized my lady's favourite anything more than contempt, you would not give means for this uncivil rule. She shall know of it by this hand." And the pair begin to bond over their shared loathing of the man and their desire to wreak their revenge on him. Note how she quickly changes her tune after this to address him as "Sweet Sir Toby." Maria has already shown herself to be adept when it comes to wordplay, not only in the way she manages to completely bamboozle Sir Andrew, but also in the way she is able to more than hold her own with Feste, and she now reveals herself to be very quick to think up a trick to play on Malvolio. Much is also made of her size by Sir Toby, and his admiration for the feisty intelligence exhibited by someone so small and female is obvious in his comments, both to her and about her. When he bids her good night, he addresses her as Penthesilea, who was the queen of a group of female warriors, the Amazons, known for being tall, strong, and fearless. He is clearly teasing her here because she is small, but he is also praising her for her intelligence and cunning in the war they have declared on Malvolio. He also describes her to Sir Andrew as a beagle, true bred, and one that adores me. A beagle is a small hound used for hunting, and so once more he's not only referring to her small size, but also perhaps to her determination and ability to sniff out a good trick. In Act 2, Scene 5, as they from the sidelines prepare to watch Malvolio picking up Maria's letter, Sir Toby addresses her as "my metal of India." In other words, he is saying that she is as precious to him as pure gold, and he even goes so far to announce, once they have laughed themselves silly as Malvolio falls for the trick hook, line and sinker, that "I could marry this wench for this device." He is in total awe of her achievement and professes to be vanquished by her. "Wilt thou set thy foot on my neck?" he invites her, as a sign that he accepts he has been conquered. We learn in the final scene of the play, Act 5, Scene 1, as Fabian explains to Olivia the practical joke that they have all played on Malvolio, that Sir Toby has in fact married her. Maria ripped the letter at Sir Toby's great importance, in recompense whereof he hath married her. Note how this is a very good result for the now Lady Maria, as the social hierarchy was very rigid in Shakespeare's time, and it was not often that people of the servant class were able to marry above their rank. Note the ridiculousness of Malvolio's delusion that he would be an acceptable match for Olivia, and how even Olivia herself is concerned about Cesario's rank and parentage. Finally, we're going to take a quick look at the relationship between Antonio and Sebastian, which is a good example of the power of love between friends. Antonio is the sea captain who rescues Sebastian after the shipwreck, and we first meet them in a state of gentle dispute at the beginning of Act 2. Sebastian is initially reluctant for Antonio to accompany him any further, arguing that he has been so unlucky up to this point that he is concerned that it will rub off on him. My stars shine darkly over me. The malignancy of my fate might perhaps distemper yours. And he's worried that it would be poor compensation for the love that Antonio has already shown him. It would be a bad recompense for your love to lay any of them, i.e. my evils, on you. Antonio, however, refuses to take no for an answer, insisting that if he doesn't want him to die from grief, Sebastian will make him his servant. If you will not murder me for my love, let me be your servant. Sebastian, however, is steadfast and bids him farewell. Antonio cannot leave it at that and professes himself so attached to him that he is willing to risk arrest, imprisonment, and even his life in order to stay with him. I have many enemies in Orsino's court, else would I very shortly see thee there. But come what may, I do adore thee, so that danger shall seem sport, and I will go. When we catch up with Antonio and Sebastian again in Act 3, Scene 3, they are out on the street in Orsino's city. Antonio tells him that his reasons for following him, even though Sebastian specifically asked him not to, are twofold. The love he feels for him is such that he would willingly undertake a longer voyage to spend more time with him, although his overriding concern is for Sebastian's safety, being as he is a stranger to these parts, to whom unguided and unfriended they often prove rough and inhospitable. My willing love the rather by these arguments of fear set forth in your pursuit. Note how not only is Antonio very protective over him, but also when Sebastian goes off by himself to do some sightseeing, Antonio treats him almost as if he would a lover, insisting that he take his purse full of money, as haply your eye shall light upon some toy you have desire to purchase, and your store, I think, is not for idle markets, sir. In other words, he wants Sebastian to be able to treat himself if he sees a little something that catches his eye. We do have to be cautious with this interpretation, however, as I'll discuss later. Antonio, of course, goes on to intervene in the duel between Sir Andrew and Viola, mistakenly believing her to be Sebastian, his desire to protect him once more seeming to suggest to the modern audience a love deeper than just friendship. In response to Sir Toby's asking him who he is, he identifies himself as one, sir, that for his love dares yet do more than you have heard him brag to you he will. In other words, he professes to be ready to put his money where his mouth is. Note Antonio's disappointment and despair as Viola fails to recognise him and understand what he means about returning his purse. But oh, how vile and idle proves this god! Thou hast, Sebastian, done good feature shame. In nature there's no blemish but the mind. None can be called deformed but the unkind. Virtue is beauty, but the beauteous evil are empty trunks, or flourished by the devil. In other words, he says that Sebastian's outward beauty is not reflected in an inner beauty. True ugliness, he says, comes from within. Those who are virtuous are naturally beautiful through and through, while those who are beautiful on the outside but evil on the inside are nothing but empty vessels superficially decorated by the devil. When the pair are finally reunited, Sebastian seems equally as emotional as Antonio, exclaiming, "Antonio, oh my dear Antonio, how have the hours racked and tortured me since I have lost thee." It has been argued that the emotional language used by the pair has a homoerotic charge, as we have seen much of what they say wouldn't seem out of place coming from the lips of a lover. We must be careful, however, before we jump to any conclusions regarding their sexuality. Not only was homosexuality a crime at the time, but male friendships were very highly regarded during the Elizabethan era, as they were seen as the height of intimacy between equals. Beds were not just for sleeping and having sex, and men often platonically shared a bed so that they could talk. Orsino himself admits that he has shared his most intimate secrets with Cesario. Thou knowest no less but all. I have unclasped to thee the book even of my secret soul. And Antonio explains that during the 3 months they have known each other, no interim, not a minute's vacancy, both day and night we did keep company. Shakespeare himself wrote 154 love sonnets, of which the first 126 were addressed to the mysterious fair youth, in which the speaker urges him to marry and have children so that his beauty may be preserved for future generations. Whatever the nature of their relationship, however, as soon as Antonio's dramatic function has been served, Shakespeare quickly dispenses with him, and he doesn't have any further lines after having remarked on the physical similarity between Sebastian and Viola, leaving Sebastian to be reunited with his sister and for all the other loose ends to be tied up. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.